Good evening, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Blue Jay Acres. Today we're going to do a full day of meals with you guys. So I'm going to show you what we are eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner completely from scratch. So I'm starting by making some flour. So I ground some white wheat berries, soft white wheat berries, and then I'm just sifting it. And that is going to separate the wheat bran from the flour, and that will give me just a more texture of a all-purpose white flour. And so when the wheat bran is done, I'm just storing it in a jar because I can add that to animal feed. You can sprinkle some on your yogurt, you can put some in your oatmeal, just you can use it up. It's still good for you, lots of good fiber in there. And Brooke, one of my daughters, she had gotten her teeth pulled, her wisdom teeth pulled a few days ago. And so she needs to eat soft food. And so we are going to do some pancakes. This is a recipe. I will have it linked down for you below. It comes from my 1950s cookbook, and we've used this for so many years. It is by far our favorite recipe. So all it was some flour, some sugar, some salt, and some baking powder. And just stirring that up, and then we're going to add in our wet ingredients, which is melted butter, or you could use oil. And then eggs. I'm doing 2 eggs. I'm doing a double batch of the pancakes. Now the eggs, I'm beating them before I put them in. You can just add the eggs, but sometimes then you get little bits of eggs that don't get mixed in really well. So I prefer to beat them before I put them in there. And sorry about my wrist. I know you see a sore there. I was making some beef bone broth the other day and canning it, and some splashed out when I was pouring it out onto my wrist and gave me a little burn there. It's not pretty to look at, but it doesn't hurt anymore, which is good. Then I'm just adding some milk to this. Now we like our milk, or our pancakes, to be thin. We don't like them to be very thick and fluffy. If you want it thick and fluffy, then you would just add less milk. And if you get it too thin, or you can always add a little bit more flour. Or if it's too thick and you want it a little thinner, you can always add a little bit more milk as well. And now we're just going to go over to the griddle. I got this beautiful griddle from my mother for my birthday, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm just putting some butter on there, and then we will add our pancakes. I got lots of new, wonderful Christmas stuff, or kitchen stuff, I should say, for my birthday and for Christmas between the kids and my mother. And I love using all the new stuff. It makes it so fun to cook. So all I'm doing here is just putting out my pancakes. I'm just going to flip them. And that's it. So this is something that even Luke, my youngest, will eat, who is autistic. He will eat these pancakes. In fact, he helps me make them quite often and loves them very much. You could also, if you had buttermilk and you wanted to put that in instead of regular milk, you could do that as well. We were just using the raw milk from the local farm that we get. And here is some yogurt. We're having to go with that. I'm just making a couple cups right now. Everybody will get their own. But that's just some raw milk yogurt that I made from the milk that we got. I'll show you guys the next time that I make it. And I'm just adding blueberries and honey because it is not sweetened at all. And it's thick, more like a Greek yogurt. And it's very good. I'll show you. Even Charles is going to give it his stamp of approval. And you know how picky he is. He's making too. It's very good. And that's it. Now it's just a symbol. These are just so, I don't know, they're just so good. Another thing we usually make to go with it is blueberry syrup, but I only had a couple blueberries left, so I didn't have enough to make blueberry syrup, which is why we just put some in the yogurt. But you can see they're wonderful. All right, now we're moving on to lunch. So for lunch, we're having some of our homemade bread. And this is a homemade wheat bread. I'm just toasting it. The kids already ate their lunch. I believe they all did peanut butter and jelly. And Charles and I, though, were wanting eggs. So I had some boiled eggs. I'm just making a really quick egg salad to go on the toast. The only thing with homemade bread, I feel like, is that you have to put it in the toaster like twice. And that way it gets nice and toasty. Otherwise, it doesn't get as toasty as white bread from the store. So I'm just adding some green onion, some salt, some pepper. And then I am using our homemade mustard and our homemade mayonnaise. Now, our homemade mustard is very strong. And it definitely has a kick to it. So if you follow our recipe, which I've shared with you guys before for homemade mustard, just don't use a lot of it. Just start small. But you can see all the mustard seeds in there. It is so good. It has the best flavor. But it definitely has a kick. And then some homemade mayonnaise. And that's it. Charles likes his very simple. So normally I would add some celery seed as well. But I could not find my celery seed. It got lost in my spice cabinet somewhere. I think it means I need to organize my spice cabinet. Now, I like a little bit more mustard than he does, so I'm going to spread some on the bottom of my piece of bread. But again, I'm just using a little because it's so strong. And then I also like more pepper on mine than Charles does. So I'm just going to add the egg salad. And yeah, that's it. I'll sprinkle a little bit of pepper on mine at the end. So we got a bunch of peanuts that we grew this last year. So I think I'm going to try and make some homemade peanut butter. We need to deshell them, and I got to roast them and then try and turn them into peanut butter. I think I'm going to do that and record it with you guys next week. And hopefully that turns out really good. Alright, so now we're moving on to dinner. So for dinner tonight, this is my version of fried rice when we don't have any leftover rice to just make regular fried rice. And I have made this also for many years. So I'm just starting with, it's about a half a cup of butter and some olive oil. But I'm making 2 big trays of fried rice, so you would use less if you were making a smaller batch. And then you pour the dry rice in. That's a few cups of dry rice. And then we're going to brown it a little bit in the butter. So you want it to kind of get a little bit brown. My grandmother used to always make baked rice, and it is so good. And this is like having baked rice. It's just, it's really good. It's a different twist, like I said, on some fried rice. So once that's browned, I'm going to add in some garlic. I don't really have measurements for everything. The main thing is, here's some freshly grated ginger. The main thing is to just double whatever you do in rice. So I think that was 2 cups of rice. Then I'm going to make sure that I've got 4 cups of a liquid. So I just grated the ginger here. Charles fixed my kitchen light. Yay! So hopefully lighting's much better for you guys. And then what I like to do when I'm making anything like this is just use up different vegetables that I need to use up. So I cut up some carrots, We have some frozen peas here. And then I had a bag of frozen cauliflower rice mixed with sweet potatoes. And so I added that as well. Just sneaking in some extra veggies. And then I'm just going to stir that up and get that nice and incorporated. And I'm still letting the rice brown a little bit more. So Charles, kids, they don't so much. They like chicken or pork. So tonight we're doing both. So I'm dividing the rice mixture into the two dishes. And then I'm going to heat up my pork. But the pork, I had to defrost. I had it sitting out, but it never did quite defrost. And I defrosted it a bit too much, so it already looks kind of cooked, as you'll soon see. But that's all right. It still tastes really good, but I wanted to just still brown it up a little bit more in here in the pan. And then I want to flavor each thing as I add it to the rice. So I'm going to add just a little bit of soy sauce to this, and that's just going to flavor it. So where I would use salt, instead I'm going to use some soy sauce. Now our pork is just fresh ground pork. There is no anything in it, no flavorings, no seasonings, no salt, no anything. So that's why I needed to give it some kind of flavor. And then I'm just spooning that on top of the rice. And then I'll spoon a little bit into the other one too. And it'll be a mix of pork and shrimp in this casserole dish right here. And then it's time to do the eggs. So I got a bunch of eggs here from our chickens. And we'll just stir that up. Sadly, we lost one of our chickens yesterday. It's just part of when we let them free range. A hawk swooped down and did get one of our chickens. I'm just adding some soy sauce to the eggs as well, instead of salt and pepper. So it was one of our blue layers. The kids named him Bluey, named her Bluey. And she was such a sweet bird. So we were very sad about that, but that again is just part of free ranging the chickens, which they love to do in the winter very much. So now I'm just adding the shrimp. I'm going to add some green onions. As far as predators here, we don't have many. We have hawks and eagles, and we have foxes and, trying to think, raccoons. Those are really, and coyotes, a lot of coyotes out here. Now I'm just adding some of our chicken broth that I had made, I don't know, probably a month ago and stuck it in the freezer. So I'm using that instead of just water. But yeah, I think I think I listed all of our predators, our main predators. So we definitely have lost. Oh, and dogs, just random dogs that'll find their way, and cats. Our cats don't mess with our birds at all. They play with them, they're always with them. But when we get wild cats come, stray cats, they sometimes will go after our birds as well. So I'm just adding the egg to both. And then I'm just going to give this a stir. Oh, sorry, forgot. I'm adding the soy sauce and the sesame oil. And then I'm going to give it a stir. And then this is just going in the oven. I cook it at 350 degrees for about an hour. And about halfway through, I am just going to give it a stir and then put it back in the oven for the other half hour. So Charles made me a new light fixture into my kitchen. I'd seen one that I really liked that was for sale, and it was a few $100s. So he made me one with wood that we already had. And I'll have to show it to you guys next video because I love it. It is so beautiful. He did a perfect job, just like I wanted. I'm very blessed to have a husband that can make anything. So now I'm just getting these in the oven. And that's it. A very easy dinner. Again, stir it halfway through. So after about 30 minutes. And this was a huge hit. Always is. Everybody loves it so much. And I purposely made so much so that we would have some leftovers for lunch the following day. So here it is. I hope you guys give this a try. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day or night, wherever you are. And I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.